we're going to begin talking about plot archetypes. I've gotten you guys to kind of think about the types of archetypes, or maybe do a little bit of observations on the similarities that we see in different stories. But before we get started, I do want to mention you do need to watch this video first. I know we've watched it in class, I think a while back, talking about setting. But I want you to go back and watch this video. It should be listed, it should be easy to find. Just sit through and watch it, and then come back to this video once you've finished watching this. Okay? So, let's talk about different archetypes or patterns in our stories. One of the most common things that we see as a pattern is something called the story mountain, or the Freytag's pyramid. So if you turn here, okay, see if you can see. Okay, so this is the story mountain. Okay, there are different parts to it, but essentially, as the story continues this way from start to end, okay, there is a rising action, falling action, and then back to kind of a straight ending. Okay, so there are a couple pieces to this, and I'm going to actually label these and try and give you a bit of time to try and compare how this fits in with this story. Okay, so we start off in the place that's kind of flat here. Okay, that we call the exposition. This is when we the story sets up its characters, setting where the story takes place, and what kind of the stakes are, essentially. So, in this video, the Goof, I think that's the Gulf, or the canyon, we meet our two characters, the two adventurers, and we kind of find that they're traveling through a forest to try and get to this location, okay? And in the exposition, we also learn that there's a village there. There are materials for them to build stuff with, okay? So in the exposition, we meet our characters, find information about setting. So, where we are. So this is the exposition. There's not a lot happening at this point in terms of conflict or drama. So that's why it's kind of depicted by this flat line. Now, as we kind of finish off exposition, we get to know the characters, we get to know the surroundings. There is a rising action. Okay? So this is when the conflict happens, or we start to see the characters actually going towards a goal, okay? Is there a challenge that they're trying to overcome? Is there a fight that they have to deal with? In this case, in our video, what are they doing? Essentially, they're just building a bridge to get across this giant canyon, okay? So, really, the rising action, oftentimes it is the first half of the story, essentially. And it's leading to a place called the climax. Okay? And this climax is often known as the point of no return. Okay? So, when characters or our heroes get to a point in the rising action where there's going to be a place where if the hero decides to take that one step forward, then they're no longer able to return back to exposition. Okay? So we'll call this point of no return. And one of the reasons I've chosen this video to kind of talk about, especially with our story pyramid, is that literally there is a very physical and great representation of this climax in this story. So we have the rising action in this story of the characters, they're finding all these supplies to build the bridge. They're building the bridge, they're cutting trees down, they're nailing boards together, okay? And we finally get to the climax, okay? There's a storm happening, okay? The wind is blowing, there's bridge sails are, holding up the bridge, and they literally get to a point where once they step out onto that bridge and decide to cross, there's no return, okay? Now, the next step, once they kind of take that step forward and get to that point of no return, the climax is at it, okay? The stakes have never been higher than there are right now at this point at the climax. And then there is the falling action, okay? Our characters from the climax point, they have chosen to take that step out into kind of the unknown, the point that they know that they can't come back from, and they've taken that step forward, and now they have to deal with the consequences, okay? Now at this point, the action has been rising and rising and rising. This is when everything is going to start coming down, okay? And what do we see in this video of the character coming down? We see, unfortunately, one of the characters has to sacrifice himself in order for the other character to continue on, okay? Now, as the action is falling, we see one of the characters make it across, and and then at this point we have what's called the denouement, okay? Or essentially the resolution. Now, the word denouement is literally French for untying the knot, okay? So what that is implying is this story has been going up and down, there's been twists and turns, there's been a knot of story that this point in the story, its purpose is to untie those crazy twists and turns and help the readers or the viewers understand the whole point of this whole story, okay? Now, the denouement, or the resolution of this story, is that we see, first of all, the character that did make it across kind of getting to move forward onto his journey. But we also get to see what this journey of people building the bridge and getting across, how does that affect the villagers that were helping them, okay? So it kind of gives you a nice resolution, okay? What happens, okay? And it kind of unties everything to kind of answer all the questions that you might have at the end of the story. So you might notice that this exposition, okay, it's a flat line, but this line here, okay, the denouement or the resolution, doesn't actually come back the same level here. It actually stays up here. That's because that's meant to represent the fact that when a denouement or a resolution happens, it doesn't come back all the way to the same spot as where the story happened. There's been a change, meaning, especially in this case, the two adventurers have become one, okay? The villagers that were involved in the story, okay, they were just working, but now, Mr. Bowser's just out the window. But now, we have the villagers who have experienced this crazy thing of the adventurers coming through their town, building a bridge across this canyon, and then moving on. People have changed by the end of this story, okay? So, I hope that makes sense, and your assignment is going to be, hopefully, just go back and watch this one more time and see if you can kind of see this pattern happening, okay? See if you can see this exposition, introduction of the character and the place that we're going to be talking about, the rising of the action where things are kind of getting higher and higher in stakes, okay? People are building stuff, people are doing things, and then the climax, or the point of no return, where our heroes need to take that extra step to go into the unknown and deal with the consequences, okay? And then the falling action and kind of dealing with the consequences of their climactic action, essentially. And then the denouement, or the resolution, where everything kind of gets untangled and kind of put in a nice bow, essentially, okay? So go back and watch this video one more time thinking about these concepts. I'm going to actually assign you a quick little short story. It's going to be called The Monkey's Paw, and it's a little bit of a horror story, maybe a bit of a thriller, okay? But nothing too crazy, but it's a very fascinating story. You might have already read it once before, but your job is going to be to read through that short story, and you're going to write out what parts of that story is exposition, what part of that story is the rising action, and what part of that story is the climax, falling action, all of that stuff, okay? I'm gonna give you guys I will give you until the end of Monday, okay? So that is what's today, it's gonna be Thursday, Friday, and Monday. That's 3 school days to work on this, okay? So I'm going to get you to hand that in at the end of the Monday, and let me know if you have any questions. Okay? Thanks for listening, guys.